I woke up early in the morning with a feeling of excitement because this was the day of the great meeting in the city. I had prayed for a long time last night and again at Fajr, asking Allah to let me go with my father to the city. I could hardly eat my breakfast while I waited to see my father when he came home from the mosque. When he came in, he was smiling. When he put his hand on my shoulder and said,
"Are you ready, my son?"
I realized that he knew without my asking that I wanted to go with him. My father, a highly respected businessman, had been invited by the Khalif, the wise leader of the Islamic community, to attend a meeting with a representative from a neighboring country who had come to seek the answers to some very important questions. It had been said in the market that this man was arrogant and was quite sure his questions could not be answered, and had no respect for our religion. Although it was still quite early, we had great difficulty in finding a place in the shade. We still had a long time to wait before the arrival of the challenger, so I was very touched when my father pulled a little folding stool out of his big bag for me to sit on. I also discovered that he had brought me some dates in the bag. What a kind father! As I sat on my stool, I looked around me and was amazed to see so many learned men all in one place. Then I noticed that a high platform had been put up in the middle of the square. So this was where the challenger would be asking his questions. Suddenly, everyone was quiet, and I looked with interest at the red-bearded stranger standing on the platform. His green eyes shot around the audience and seemed to say,
"What an ignorant lot you are."
The challenger then addressed us all in a rather strange accent, but I could understand him.
"I have come,"
he said,
"to ask you 3 questions. If you can answer them, my master has ordered me to give you a large sum of money, which I have with me in my lodging. My first question is, what was there before Allah? My second question is, in which direction does Allah face? And my last is, what is Allah doing at this moment?"
A deep silence descended on the crowd, and I noticed several people were looking at their notebooks, having written down the questions. I said to my father that in our lessons we had often discussed similar ideas, and surely there must be a lot of people in the crowd who knew the answers. However, the silence continued unbroken, and I began to feel a strange urge welling up in my heart. With the will of Allah, a thought came to my mind, how I could answer these questions. So I asked my father to seek permission from the Khalif to answer the questions. Since no one else had spoken by now, I was allowed to address the challenger. As I walked towards the platform, a great sigh came from the crowd, but the challenger looked at me as if I were a mouse creeping out of a sack. "What was your first question?" I asked.
What was there before Allah?
Remembering all that my father had taught me, I asked the challenger, "Do you know how to count?"
Of course,
he said arrogantly. At this moment, I sensed a disappointment in the crowd, because they had probably expected me to give some quotations from the Quran. I asked the challenger to count down from 10, which he did in a sneering tone.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
When he reached 1, he stopped. I then asked him, "What comes before 1? Thinking he had triumphed, he loudly answered,
There is nothing before 1. That is it.
The crowd groaned in near despair, but I knew that Allah was in my heart and that my answer would be inspired. "Well then, if there is obviously nothing before the arithmetical 1, I said, then how do you expect that there should be anything before the one who is absolute truth, all eternal, everlasting, the first, the last, the manifest, the hidden?" The crowd murmured. Now the man was surprised by this direct answer, which he could not dispute. So he asked,
Then tell me, in which direction is Allah facing?
"Bring a candle and light it," I said, "and tell me in which direction the flame is facing."
But the flame is just light. It spreads in each of the 4 directions: north, south, east and west. It does not face any one direction only,
said the man in dawning wonderment. I cried that if this physical light spreads in all 4 directions so that you cannot tell me which way it faces, then what do you expect of the great Allah, the light of the heavens and the earth? Light upon light, Allah faces all directions at all times. The crowd murmured, The man was stupefied and astounded that here was a teenager answering his challenges in such a way that he could not argue against the proofs. So he desperately wanted to try his final question. But before doing so, I said, "Wait! You are the one who is asking the questions, and I am the one who is giving the answers to these challenges. It is only fair that you should come down to where I am standing, and that I should go up to where you are right now, in order that the answers should be heard as clearly as the questions." Surprisingly, this seemed reasonable to the man, so he came down from where he was standing and I climbed onto the platform. Then the man repeated his final challenge.
Tell me, what is Allah doing at this moment?
I proudly answered, "At this moment, when Allah found on this high platform an unbeliever, He caused him to be brought low, and in his place brought a faithful believer to establish the truth." The crowd murmured, When the challenger had gone to collect the reward, accompanied by 2 strong men, I told the crowd to wait until we could distribute the money to all those who needed it. Safe beside my dear father, I felt such happiness as can only come from being a humble servant of the great Allah.